Thank you all. I did want to mention also, again, that since April 1st, we have elevated the truck in Appalach to a full-time ALS truck, and we have had no instances without a truck in the county and no instances where we were delayed getting to a scene since we've done that. Again, we're funding that out of our existing funding, but it's getting tight, and it will become a problem in the next month or so. So I will keep you informed on how that's going.
Jared, you need to go by the city hall in Carabel and get you the little card to get into the airport. They got them out there because the other night we had the problem getting in the airport. They just got the little card and get one to put in your ambulance.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay. Because when the life flight come in, I had to go out and unlock it.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that today.
How many ambulance we got all together now?
We've got five in the fleet right now. We've got the brand new one coming in June, which will make 6, and then with this purchase, that'll make 7. That we'll probably have by November, you think? About November it should be in. So now, as I reported to you last year, last summer, we do need to get into a more consistent routine of rotating those ambulances out of service, because we end up with ambulances that are really, we're spending, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year on service on these older ambulances, as opposed to, you know, just spending the $200,000 and getting a new one. And that really stacks up when you got ambulances we're running with 200,000, 300,000 miles on them. So, but we'll update you. We got a new one in June. We'll get the replacement in November, and we'll see where we're at then, and see where the fleet is, and we'll give you a plan at that point.
Okay, one more question. From day of order to day of the ambulance getting here, how long did that take?
About 6 months,
6 months.
yeah, on average. I mean, sometimes they get a busy season, but the good thing about ordering it now is most of the ambulances get ordered right after the new fiscal year. When people get their budgets approved, then all the orders go in. So we're going to be ahead of the game by doing it now, as opposed to waiting until the insurance actually gets adjudicated. So,
Well, another question. You buy ambulance, everybody buy them all over the world. I'm quite sure that company knows ambulance gonna be wrecked and different things. They don't have nothing ready?
no, generally the ambulances, they're like building a custom house. I mean, it's not like going to buy a Ford or a Chevy car that's stock. I mean, you spec it out, what you want on it, which equipment you want on it, what stretcher you want on it, and once you choose the stretcher, then there's, you know, they've got other things that are customized for that. So it's a custom build throughout the process.
So they don't have nothing for emergency purpose?
No.
I spoke to them this week. They're sure they don't have anything on the tail end of the line available at this point.
Don't make sense.
Next thing on my list is the LIP funding. As I reported to you, the state did a very good job of escalating the funding for LIP, and now they've sent it to Washington for CMS to approve or disapprove. And I talked to Mark O'Brien about this yesterday. And if you'll recall, my concern was more the politics of what's going on between Florida and Washington. Mark seems to think it's actually more material than that, and here's why. The funding mechanism for LIP, the formula that decides who gets what money, was significantly changed in this program. And ironically, what has happened is the safety net hospitals in Miami, which I think it's Jackson in Miami, and the Shands in Jacksonville, Those are two of the biggest safety net hospitals, and by safety net, I mean where indigent folks generally go for care. In this new funding formula, their funding actually shrinks. And ironically, some of the suburban hospitals have seen as much as tens of 20s and 30s. One hospital in Tampa got a $50 million increase by this formula. The hospital in Homestead was projected to get $32 million out of LIP, whereas Tallahassee, which is a bigger safety net hospital than the one in Homestead, gets $6.8 million. So that is where the CMS issues are. Their questions are in the formula for LIP, the distribution formula. I think it would be significantly unfair for, say, the suburban hospital in Tampa to get $50 million more when their bottom line is already $200 million for the year, whereas the hospital in Miami that's seeing 80% indigent sees a $30 million loss on their bottom line. So I can see CMS's point, and hopefully that there might be some negotiation in this. I don't know. For us, it is significant because the formula for us improves our funding from $300,000 to $900,000. So yes, I would like to see it get approved selfishly, but for the state as a whole, it doesn't seem to be a good thing for our safety net hospitals across the state. So just, that's the update I have for on LIP, and just keep our fingers crossed that something works out on it.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
What's the time frame for that decision to be made?
Mark said yesterday that they actually do not have to make a decision until September, even though I think they expected, the new funding starts in July, but they don't have to make a decision until September. He doesn't think they'll take till September, but that is what the law provides that they are allowed to do.
Follow up. Do those funds come in a lump sum or over the course of the year and reimbursement? How does that work?
For each individual hospital, they come in throughout the year.
So basically, what the CMS is looking for is for a more equitable distribution.
Yes.
Or the more indigent people you see, then the more financial help
Correct.
that you need. And it sounds like the state has a totally different program than that. So I can understand that when you're talking about safety net hospitals and the amount of patients and the amount of volume that they're seeing, and how the LIP funding could go down for that. I mean, that's what LIP funding is supposed to be for. So I don't understand where the distribution problem is, but there obviously seems to be a problem.
Yeah, there is definitely something in the formula that's not working. I will tell you, they divided I think the House had us at like $1.2 million in reimbursement, and the Senate had us at like $600,000. So when they negotiated their formulas, we ended up at $900,000. Then something to do in the formula where they tier the hospitals. You're in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4. Tier 1, you don't see hardly any indigent. Tier 4, it's the highest percentage, or it's a higher percentage of your payer mix. We're in tier 4, as Weems is in tier 4. Obviously, we're not a safety net hospital, but as a percentage of our overall revenue, we're right up there with the state's highest indigent populations. So, as far as cash goes, we are getting by. Obviously, things are not all the way back to normal. Our normal billing things are going through, but we are having glitches in the system that are holding up this particular type of claim. And it'll be a 2 or 3 week lag before those claims get out. We fix that problem, then this pops up. So it's still not right, but we are managing up to this point. I'm a little bit concerned about how this month might go. When I say concerned, I don't know. But as of right now, we're holding our own. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to mention to you all today, last month at our hospital board meeting, Mark O'Brien had requested to see the hospital board. And he came down and he really wanted to throw some ideas around just to have a conversation. And I went up yesterday and talked with him again. And I'm happy to report to you that he is preparing a proposal for the county and would like to come down and meet with you all in the next month or so. He's expecting another 2 or 3 weeks to put this proposal together. He's waiting on some additional information. But what he would like to do is to make a proposal to the county to come down as a partner and share in the risk for Weems, to actually be a financial partner. And basically what he's envisioned is to take the risk out of the hospital operations for the county. That's the risk he would assume. The expectation being that the county would maintain the risk for the building itself. And he wants to bring in a third partner, which actually has a lot of critical access hospital experience. Obviously, Mark has no experience in critical access hospitals. I mean, he'll tell you, when I'm trying to talk to him about hospital operations, he just kind of looks at me and says, Mike, I don't know what you're talking about, because it's just a totally different operational mindset. So he wants to get a partner that has that mindset and bring them into the mix as well. So I think this could be a very positive thing. I know there'll be a lot of details and probably negotiations that have to take place, but he would like to come down and set up a workshop with you all probably in the next month, just to discuss the ideas that he has. So I talked to him yesterday. He said, Mike, I'm not ready yet, but tell the commissioners tomorrow that I'm getting there and I'll be down soon. So.
Could you, Mr. Chairman, if I might?
Yes, sir.
Could you monitor that over the next 2 weeks, Mike, and maybe get us something here by the next board meeting that, what time is going to be good for him so that we can arrange a workshop at our next board meeting, which is 2 weeks.
Okay.
And see where timeline's at, kind of keep us informed on that issue.
It'll probably be the first meeting in June before he's totally ready, Commissioner Parrish. But I will definitely check his schedule out and see if I can't have him block some time out.
Well, we just set up one workshop for the evening of June the 7th, was it, Mike?
7th.
So, just let us know in a couple of weeks at our next board meeting, and we may could add that to it. Just do a 45-minute workshop with the previous issue, and then go right into another workshop while we're all here anyway. That would work fine with us, but just monitor it and just keep, maybe send us something out for the next board meeting. I know you don't come at the second board meeting, but you can put something in our packet for us to let us know where we're at, and then we could add that to the workshop agenda. What does the commissioner thinks about that?
It's a good idea.
We're gonna be here
Motion.
anyways. I mean, if it works for Mark, then we'll look at that at the next board meeting.
Do it all in one.
All right.
A comment, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a very positive development. One of the things when I was on the hospital board was that we thought that Weems, as the size hospital that it was, needed a partner. And I think it makes sense that TMH might provide the fit that we need. I'm looking forward to his visit and the workshop.
Comment.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a good thing, but I wanna get something clear. You see, I got a problem with a couple of things. First one is this. When you come in front of that podium, you on TV, you in front of commission. We here, the public is here. When you tell us something, we be looking for it to happen. What about like this contract with the IT? Everything supposed to been in order, we supposed to been reimbursed, time to get reimbursed. It don't happen. That's not good. That's not good faith, showing good faith, and I don't know what happened in between there, or it wasn't set up right,
Well,
or was set up wrong, or I don't know. I'm not in the business. You in the business.
well,
But what I'm saying is, let us know, we expect what you say.
Commissioner, I think we will get reimbursed for that contract. The issue, it's not that we shouldn't be reimbursed, I don't believe. I believe it is the unfamiliarity with this particular program with the county's auditor. That's my opinion. Yeah, I don't think it's anything that we've done wrong. They just don't have experience with meaningful use programs. So John and I will be on the phone with them again this afternoon to try to iron that out with them.
Well, I'm talking about, look like the lawyer said we supposed to got, when we bought this system, we supposed to get reimbursed. And it's not happening.
I think it will happen.
Okay.
That's all of my report.
Make it happen.
John?
Morning, Commissioners. I know you're backing up against another meeting, so I will be brief, presenting the March financial reports. We did have a break-even month, $5,000 profit overall.
Mr. John?
Yes, ma'am.
I need to
Yes,
stop.
sir.
I got to go in this public hearing.
All right.
Okay. And we got, yeah.
All right, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioners, good morning. We're here for a public hearing. It's a rezoning for Mr. Armstead. I want to be very clear about something, Commissioners. We're here for the rezoning only. This is not a commercial site plan, preliminary or final approval. It's for the rezoning only. I've seen some of the, I sent you some of the emails that we've received, and there was a lot of concern that you guys are going to approve this plan or not approve this plan this morning. That is not the case. It's rezoning. Planning and zoning's role, they received a request from Mr. Armstead for the March 8th Planning and Zoning Regular Commission meeting. They looked at it to make sure it wasn't spot zoning, it complied with our comp plan, that there was similar zoning around this request. They found it to be sufficient enough to send it to this board for a public hearing. Planning and Zoning Commission, they don't hold scheduled public hearings. That's not their role. An advisory board to this, I should say advisory commission to this board.
But
So
they have never voted on this?
They voted, they found it
To send it to a
sufficient
public hearing.
to send a public hearing for this board to make a decision on the rezoning.
But
That's-
they didn't vote it in, they didn't approve the C3 zoning themselves
I-
with the
No,
recommendation?
they
the
just
board
approved
take
a
to vote?
recommendation to this board. They don't have that authority, Commissioners, only this board does.
Okay.
So I'm sure Mr. Armstead wants to speak first, or I can explain it to you guys.
Mike, I'm just reading through this ordinance here that's being proposed. It says that, whereas Board of Franklin County Commissioners of Florida received a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission for changing the land use and all that. So they are sending forward a recommendation
Oh,
from
yes,
the P
yes,
and Z
they are. I want to make sure,
to do the
yes.
land change.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that
they
includes having
recommend-
this public hearing.
Yes, sir, and by
Okay,
doing that, if they
okay.
didn't recommend it, then there would be no need for the public hearing, so yes, sir. So they
Okay.
send over everything
Okay.
as one.
That's what I was trying
I'm
to,
sorry.
I was just trying to trip you up.
No, I understand.
Good morning, Commissioners. Y'all know I'm in favor of it. I'll be glad to answer any
You
questions.
speak your name for the,
Walter Armstead. St. George Island. There may be some people here opposed to it too. You might want to hear from them first, and then I can react to it or answer any questions you have. I'm here at your pleasure.
Yes, sir.
I think that'd be appropriate if we got people that's opposed to it, Walter, to listen to their concerns
Yeah.
and come back and address those concerns.
Okay, thank you.
I think that would be very appropriate.
Yes, sir.
I signed up, and
Speak your name,
Tom Adams, St. George Island.
thank you.
I signed up to speak on this because of the concern I have about the location of the trailer park. It being on the only access evacuation route. And I think it's a bottleneck there. It's also situated, in addition, adjacent to these large settling pools that receives runoff from the bridge. And so these pools there are taking that whole block. And there's wetland on the site, which tells us that there's seepage from those pools in addition to rain and other conditions that cause water to be there. One thing that we learned in extensive research on septic tanks is that the septic tank, when it's sitting there and it's dry, it's inert. It's not moving. When it rains, it destroys the filtration and it moves those pollutants to the bay. You're adjacent to two of the largest oyster areas there, Cat Point and East Bay. And so I think it poses a threat to that. And therefore, I'm very much opposed to this at that location. I don't have a problem with the trailer park, but just as it's placed by the state, it's placed way out on the end where it doesn't affect those seafood areas. We also have massive parking there right in the center. So there's a good deal of activity, traffic and otherwise. I have the fear, and I remember this happening. Before we had the bridge, we had the causeway. And I remember a little girl fishing one day, and excited because she got a fish, and she started to reel it in. And then she made the mistake of backing up, was killed by the traffic. There's going to be children, there's going to be bicycles, foot traffic in this area adjacent to the only access we have for evacuation. And so I think that poses a threat. I have formalized this, and I'd like to submit this to all of you so that you'll understand what it is I'm talking about. We were told, if you have opposition, give us the reasons. Just don't say I'm against it. I have 14 reasons. Well, the first is there have been previous attempts to change the zoning in this area. On the east side, this is a small project. On the west side, what was previously rejected by this board was the division of land into quarter-acre lots and massive housing units on the west side. If you approve the east side, you're pressed by other developers to go ahead with the other change too. And it has the change of habitation there, which it's not part of the current zoning. It's zoned recreational. And so you're going to get approval pressure for more expansive projects on the west side as well. The traffic danger to children and bikes in the only evacuation room has never been zoned for habitation, human habitation. The pollution danger is great to the seafood area with wet soil from the settling ponds and from runoff in times of rain. It's adjacent to the seafood harvesting areas of East Bay and Cat Point. Wetlands on the property directly run into the bay. In addition to that, there is a uniqueness to the left side as opposed to the right side or the east side. There's a natural baylet there that is protected, and so that's a nursery. And so you have what's growing in that little baylet is your miniature fish, juvenile fish, oysters, crabs, shrimp. You're going to hear a lot, I'm sure, about the aesthetics to the island. Should these areas develop, you don't have much of a presentation for the beauty of the island and the nature of the island. You're putting dense, potentially dense housing right on the entrance to the island, on the only route that we have for access and leaving. So we have the water table from these ponds, which are huge. They take that whole city block. Before it was engineered to create those ponds, you were almost up to your doors just trying to get on the island in times of rain. And so that creates a problem. It's already a productive area for seafood. It's also the source for access for the local people who oyster or work the bay. And that's needed. It's a nursery area. The prior planning in '77 is when we had the development order because of this being an area of critical concern. Critical concern was that we were losing the bay and losing part of the seafood industry. And so the existing trailer area that you have, which is out at the end in the state park, and the potential at the forward end near the bay, as opposed to being in this rich seafood area. And so I urge you to not approve this for those reasons, and others that may speak may have additional reasons. I thank you for your time, and I ask for your vote for denial.
Tom, hold on just 1 second. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing, quasi-judicial hearing at which all the parties, both for and against, have an opportunity to present their own witnesses and also to cross-examine anyone who's speaking here today. So, Walter, anyone who's speaking, you have an opportunity to cross-examine them if you choose to. You don't have to.
I'll
And
just
like-
speak at the end and try to address the issues as they come.
Correct. And also, whenever you make your presentation or finish your presentation, they also have the right to cross-examine you and ask you questions and questions of any of your witnesses as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Did you receive the paper that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, I've done read it.
I'll be glad to answer any questions about that, or to Walter. I don't have a problem with Walter. Walter's a friend of mine. It's just I'm against what he wants to do at this particular spot. I think it's a danger and sets a precedent that's going to bring additional development pressure on the west side as well as that part on the east. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, sir. I don't. Anybody have a question? Anyone else? Anyone else wants to speak? Yes, sir. Speak your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Mark Hillis, and my wife and I own a home in Mariners Harbor on the bayside, on the east end of St. George Island. And we've also owned a lot on the bayside in the plantation, which we donated to FSU a few years ago. We are very concerned about St. George Island, and I can't express everything he just expressed just so eloquently, and he covered a lot of things that I would cover too. But I'm very concerned about the environmental stress on the island also by having an RV park there. I think aesthetically it would be a detriment for people who want to come rent homes in the plantation and other areas to pass by the island and see a trailer park out there. It's not going to do anything, I don't think, for generating revenues, because it might just be a detriment to revenues by the decrease in the property values by having an RV park. We have an RV park at Dr. Julian Bruce State Park. That's sufficient. I go through that park running, bicycle through there. Rarely have I ever seen that park ever filled. There are other RV parks that are on Highway 98 in close proximity to St. George Island. So I see no need to have one there, and in particular at that location. And that's, all I have to say unless somebody has some questions.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.